Good evening. Welcome to the October 22nd meeting of your Aiken City Council. At this time, we're going to have the invocation by Mr. Richard Johnson, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by two of the senior members from Troop 115. So if you would, please rise. Good evening, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor. May we pray. O merciful and gracious Heavenly Father, once again, we come before thy throne of mercy. We come, Lord, giving thee thanks for all of the blessings that thou hast bestowed upon us. We thank you, Lord, that you have enabled us to assemble at this appointed place, at this appointed time. We pray, Lord, that whatever is done and said will be pleasing and acceptable unto thee. We pray, Lord, that you would bless council members, bless the citizen of the city of Aiken, this state, and even this nation. We pray, Lord, that you would just continue to guide us and direct us. These blessings we ask in the name of Jesus Christ, thy Son. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. At this time, we want to welcome up members of Troop 115. Good evening, gentlemen. We'll ask if you would introduce yourselves to us.
I am Joseph Deskovich, here of part of Troop 115.
Welcome,
I'll be
Joseph.
happy to do the pledge for you.
All right, and who's?
And I'm Anthony Gibson, board of Troop 115.
Thank you, Anthony and Joseph. Appreciate it.
All rise.
I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to
the
the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Well done. All right, we'd like to start each meeting off by reading the guidelines, the way we expect to treat one another and run our meeting. Meetings are public forums in which many opinions are expressed and the business of the city must be conducted. As such, disciplined, honorable, and professional decorum is paramount. Courteous and respectful communication is certainly expected. During public hearing, all questions and statements from the public shall be directed to the chair. If you wish to speak, raise your hand and I will certainly recognize you. Please approach the podium and state your name and address. In order to allow an opportunity for everyone who wishes to address council, speakers should limit their comments to the subject being discussed. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes to address an issue and may only address an issue once unless questions from council are posed to the speaker. And we appreciate you working with us and adhering to our rules. Moving down the agenda to additions and deletions to the agenda, I'd like to recognize Mayor Pro Tem Gail Diggs. Ms. Diggs, good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, there is one change to the agenda. Under new business, item number 5, a resolution authorizing the City of Aiken to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Aiken Senior Life Services Incorporated. That item will be continued to our next meeting.
All right, very good. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor as presented? And that's unanimous. Thank you. The minutes were distributed to council for their review prior to the meeting. Is there a motion for the approval of the minutes as presented?
I so move.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Diggs. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jardo. Motion and second. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down the agenda to old business number 1, this is discussion of appointments to various city boards, commissions, and committees. And I will recognize City Manager Mr. Stuart Beedenbaugh. Stuart?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 19 pending appointments on the board, on city boards, but we do not have any up for consideration for council tonight.
Very good. Are there any names from council to be considered at our next meeting?
I do have one. I'd like to nominate Michelle Harper Merriweather to the Accommodations Tax Committee.
Okay. Any other names for consideration?
I would just make a comment that there's a lot of appointments that need to be made, folks.
Very good.
Some of them go way back to last year.
Very good. All right, thank you. We will We will have that name for consideration at our next meeting. Moving down to old business number 2. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to amend the concept plan for Pin Oak Farms Colleton Park Development on Silver Bluff Road to allow for a self-storage facility. By title, an ordinance amending the concept plan for property located on the west side of Silver Bluff Road, north of Pascalis Place. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jericho. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Duar. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have before you tonight second reading of this ordinance, which would amend the concept plan for a portion of this development on Silver Bluff Road. At the last council meeting, we did present to you some proposed changes to the concept plan that the engineer for the development submitted to staff in late September. And those are detailed and were read into the record at the last meeting. And council did approve this ordinance at first reading on October 8th, which would, again, rezone a portion of, amend the concept plan for 11 acres of the Pin Oak Farms Colleton Park planned residential development to allow for a self-service storage facility on that 11.08 acres with the conditions stated in the memo and the ordinance.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? All those on second reading? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to item number 3 under old business. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to annex 127 Branchwater Lane and zone it residential single-family RS 15. By title, an ordinance to annex property located at 127 Branchwater Lane and zone to the same residential single-family RS 15. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Jericho. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. I think there's one.
That is correct. We have 2 other annexations as well that we can consider with the motion, Mr. Mayor.
I think let's do this. Is there a conflict on this one? Is this the item?
No conflict
Okay,
that I'm
okay.
aware
All
of.
right, very good. Well, comments from staff. My apologies.
No problem. Mr. Mayor, we do have before you tonight a recommended annexation of 127 Branchwater Lane and zoning it residential single family, and this is pursuant to our water and sewer annexation policy.
All right, thank you, sir. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council?
Are we
All those-
including the other 2 now, or?
We're just going to do them one at a time.
Okay.
Since that's how they were on
That's
the
fine.
agenda. Okay, all those in favor of this item on second reading, please? And that's unanimous. Moving down the agenda to item number 4, this is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to annex 217 Lakeside Drive and zone it residential single-family RS 15. By title, an ordinance to annex property located at 217 Lakeside Drive and to zone the same residential single-family RS 15. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Price. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Jericho. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have an annexation request for 217 Lakeside Drive to rezone it residential single-family RS 15, and this is pursuant to our water and sewer annexation policy.
Comments from the audience? Comments from council? Okay, all those in favor on second reading? That's unanimous, thank you. Moving to item number 5. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to annex 901 Shadow Drive and zone it residential single-family RS 15. By title, an ordinance to annex property located at 901 Shadow Drive and to zone the same residential single-family RS 15. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jericho. It's about your third or fourth second of the night, isn't it?
We're on a roll.
Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have for council consideration annexation of 901 Shadow Drive to rezone residential single-family RS 15, and this is pursuant to our water and sewer annexation policy.
Thank you. Mr. Beanbo, any comments from the audience? Comments from council? All those in favor on second reading? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to rezone property at the corner of Beaufort Street and Abbeville Avenue and approve the concept plan. By title, an ordinance to rezone certain property located at the corner of Beaufort Street and Abbeville Avenue from residential single-family, RS-15, to residential single-family attached, RSA, and to approve the proposed concept plan. Is there a motion?
I
Councilman
second.
Waltz, Ms. Diggs with a second. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant, Beaufort Street Development LLC, has requested the rezoning of approximately 9.3 acres of property at the corner of Beaufort Street and Abbeville Avenue and approval of a concept plan. And it would be rezoned to residential single-family attached RSA. We did read in the conditions at the last meeting and in addition to the waivers. Also, I would note that at the October 8th council meeting, it was discussed that section 4.2.9 of the zoning ordinance, which describes specific design standards for attached single-family development, requires that no more than 30% of the units have garages facing the primary street. It was the Planning Commission's interpretation that the perimeter of the streets for the proposed development would be considered primary, and thus the garages depicted on the concept plan were oriented towards internal or secondary streets, and therefore it's the Planning Commission's interpretation that no waiver of this provision is required. One thing I would like to note as well, we were informed late this afternoon and I would ask Mr. Bland to come up. The Department of Transportation has sent or has given us a slight revision to some of the means of egress into the development off of the streets. And I would ask Mr. Bland to detail that with council.
Good evening, Mr. Bland.
Good evening. So the engineer on the project sent over revisions to, or some potential revisions to the plans, access, as a result of conversations with DOT. Previously, there were 2 access points on Beaufort, sorry. Yes, 2 access points on Beaufort, the south of the site. DOT would prefer to have that align with Orangeburg Street more so, and so likely it seems that DOT will request that those be consolidated into, those 2 drives be consolidated into a single access point. So you go from 2 access points on Beaufort to 1, or sorry, Abbeville, I keep referencing wrong, Abbeville. And on the north side, there was earlier depicted 1 access point, which was adjacent to Beaufort Street. They wanted that moved back more toward mid-block, essentially kind of to split the difference between Orangeburg Street on the north side and Beaufort. So you would essentially have the same amount of access points on the north side. You'd have a reduction in access points on the south side from 2 to 1, but the internal circulation, number of units would actually drop by a couple as a result of that. And again, those are still being worked through with DOT, but staff wouldn't necessarily see those as significant at this time. It's essentially the same layout of the plan, just the access drives have been moved.
And to clarify, there are no access points on Beaufort into this.
There are still no access points on Beaufort into the project.
All right, it was Abbeville that you were discussing earlier.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Is that okay with the developer?
I assume, is that the first time you've heard that, or? I'm going to ask you to come up here with Tilden, yeah. I know you're representing the developer tonight. Good evening. Are you familiar with what Mr. Bland just?
Tilden Hildebrand, Hatson Hildebrand, 133 Greenville Street. Yes, I am. We initiated the questions with DOT before the last meeting, and it took them a little over 3 weeks to respond. And this is our response, is to consolidate driveways on Abbeville and shift the driveway on Hampton. And that's what I wanted to mention tonight.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Any other comments from the audience? Any comments from council? Okay, all those in favor on second reading? And that's unanimous, thank you. Moving down old business to item number 7. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to rezone property on University Parkway near Grand Oaks subdivision from limited business to general business. By title, an ordinance to rezone certain property located on University Parkway from limited business LB to general business GB. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Price. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant has requested the rezoning of 2 parcels on University Parkway near the entrance to Grand Oaks subdivision. The parcels are approximately 7.89 acres, and by rezoning from limited business to general business, the applicant believes the property would be better suited for development within the general business zoning. And the Planning Commission had unanimously considered this request for rezoning at their September 11th meeting, and council reviewed this at first reading on October 8th, and unanimously sent it back for second reading. So it is before you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Beedenbaugh. Any comments from the audience? Okay. Comments from council? All those in favor of second reading? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to item number 8, this is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to sell property at 636 Hampton Avenue Northwest to Discovery Corp. LLC. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you. Councilwoman Diggs, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Girardeau. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dexter Price of Discovery Corp. LLC has offered to purchase the property at 636 Hampton, an unimproved lot, for $2,000. And we would place this the net proceeds into our funds dedicated for building demolition. If I may make a note about building demolition, we have bid out this work for building demolition, should get those bids back in mid-November. So we've got a queue of about 20 houses we're ready to start demolishing. So we are moving forward on that. And moving back to this agenda item, you approved this unanimously at your October 8th meeting, and it is back before you at second reading. And I do note that Councilwoman Price has recused herself from this particular matter.
Thank you for that. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council?
How much is in the demolition fund, any idea, Stuart?
I can give you, I will have to get that exact number, but it's it's over $200,000 right now. A portion of that we budgeted with just normal through the annual budget process. And then we also, when we closed the Crosland Park account, we moved a good bit of that money into building demolition as well, and that was about $200,000. So actually it is over $250,000, but I can get that figure.
And what is the cost per demolition?
Well, once we get the bids back in, we hope it'll be under $10,000 a property, again, by doing by having multiple properties.
So, are we demoing the property for whoever buys it?
No. This is separate. We have a list. We have a Demo 200 program, and we have about 20 houses in queue waiting to be demolished. And by bidding the work out versus having staff do the demolition, it can get done a lot quicker.
We're kind of picking the same area close.
That is correct. A lot of these homes are in the areas where we've been selling properties, and a lot of them came off the boarded up property list that we submitted to council earlier this year that had 130 plus properties.
Yeah.
We've reached out to all of those folks.
Okay.
Doing a good job,
Good
thank you.
job.
All right. With that said, all those in favor of second reading? And that's unanimous with the note that Ms. Price has recused herself on that issue. All right, moving down the agenda to item number 9 under old business. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to sell 401 Ridge Avenue Northwest to Catherine Stevens. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Jericho. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Diggs. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have before council tonight, second reading of an ordinance to sell 401 Ridge Avenue Northwest. The property is on general business. We did note last time as well that Ms. Stevens is the spouse of Mike Stake, who is a realtor that we have, one of 3 realtors we have worked with on marketing these properties that are of no use to the city and are better suited to be offered to the public. This parcel, as well as one that several years ago, as I mentioned last meeting, we put up for sealed bids, and we had no one make an offer on the property. So again, it has been offered to the public before. So we have before council at second reading the potential sale of 401 Ridge Avenue to Catherine Stevens for $2,000.
Thank you, Mr. Biedenbaugh. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? And all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to new business, item number 1. This is first reading of an ordinance to sell lot on Thorpe Lane in Buckbox LLC, to Buckbox LLC. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jericho. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have at first reading tonight an ordinance to sell this lot to Buckbox LLC for $5,000, and the buyer's intent is to consider residential use for the property. And we have before you first reading and public hearing for your consideration tonight.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? Okay, all those in favor? It's Councilman Waltz, Councilwoman Gregory, the Mayor, Councilman Diggs, and Councilman Jericho. Moving down new business to item number 2. This is first reading of an ordinance for an installment purchase transaction to finance the public safety facility and approve the base lease agreement and issuance of bonds by the Aiken Public Facilities Corporation. By title, an ordinance authorizing the City of Aiken, South Carolina, to enter into an installment purchase transaction to finance the costs relating to the acquisition and equipping of a public safety facility, authorizing the execution and delivery of various documents relating to such transaction, including the base lease agreement and the installment purchase and use agreement, approving the use of certain money of the city, approving the issuance of bonds by the City of Aiken Public Facilities Corporation, delegating authority to the mayor and city manager to effect such transaction and determine certain matters and other matters related thereto. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gregory. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In June 2017, council approved an ordinance allowing us to enter into a purchase and sale agreement with Southeastern Real Estate, which for this project is Wire Road LLC for the construction of the public safety headquarters at 834 Buford Avenue Northeast. The construction will be substantially complete in late November, and payment will be due in January 2019. As we discussed at our work session last time, we did have a presentation from our financial advisor, David Cheatwood, a first try-on. We had submitted proposals to 49 institutions, received 9 proposals back, and the one that is before you tonight that was recommended is a 20-year term with BB&T at a rate of 3.74% for the first 15 years. After, at the 15-year mark, the rate will be reset to the current market rate to not exceed 4%. and no prepayment penalty will exist should we choose to pay off the loan after 5 years or after November 2023. One thing to keep in mind with prepayment, in addition to literally paying the note off, any payment, there is a penalty making any payment above what we expect the annual payment to be of approximately $627,000 a year. Now, the cost is going to be budgeted, the debt service cost will be budgeted from our Transportation and Public Safety Improvement Fund, which is money we set aside when the franchise fee on the electric utilities bills provided by South Carolina Electric and Gas and Aiken Electric. Council approved that increase about approximately 3 years ago. The plan is to close the transaction November 15th. We propose paying for the closing costs of $140,000 for work that has been done on this project dating back to June of 17 through the time of closing, through a budget amendment that we will consider at a later item in this agenda. So we have before council tonight first reading of this ordinance to provide for this installment purchase transaction to finance the purchase of our new public safety facility at 834 Beaufort Street.
All right, thank you, Mr. Beanbaum. Any comments from the audience? Okay, any comments or questions from council? Okay, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down new business to item number 3, this is a first reading of a budget adjustment ordinance for closing costs for Public Safety Headquarters project. By title, an ordinance amending the budget of the City of Aiken for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Price. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. Councilwoman Gregory, comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I mentioned just moments ago, we do have a budget adjustment ordinance to address the closing costs for the Public Safety Headquarters project of estimated to be $140,000, which we can pay for from the fund balance in said Transportation and Public Safety Improvement Fund. This would require a budget adjustment and is prepared for your consideration tonight at first reading.
All right, thank you, sir. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to item number 4. This is a resolution accepting National Fitness Campaign NFC Fitness Grant. A resolution to implement an outdoor fitness court at Generations Park. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. Councilwoman Price. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have an opportunity to accept a $30,000 grant from the National Fitness Campaign to put a fitness court in at our new Generations Park. And we do have we will be, pending council approval, we will be in our fiscal year 19-20 budget, we'll be allocating the appropriate match for this to council. And before, I guess, we go into any details and answer any questions, I know we have a brief video that we will show to demonstrate this opportunity.
All right.
This is why I'm here, to make this happen all across the country. Let's make world-class fitness free for everyone. Hi, I'm Mitch Menadjic, founder of the National Fitness Campaign. National Fitness Campaign started in 1979 when we invented the fitness court. Our first 2 fitness courts were at Stanford and San Francisco, and the mayor and Wells Fargo Bank got behind the program, and over a period of 10 years, we opened fitness courts in 4,000 cities across America. We're introducing a new fitness court for the 21st century and launching a new national fitness campaign. The fitness court will allow you to use your own body weight to get a perfect workout. Our 7-movement, 7-minute system allows you to get a full body workout in just 7 minutes. 45 seconds of work at each station, followed by 15 seconds of rest. The system is progressive, so people at all fitness levels can use it. Easy or hard, it'll work for everyone. And it's adaptable as well. You can come to the fitness court and do any workout. If you're training for a Tough Mudder, if you're running a marathon, the fitness court will work for you. You can download our mobile app, learn our routines, and take some of the fitness challenges. This will allow you to compete on the fitness court against your own personal times and against your friends. You can also match the music on your phone to your workouts to make it a lot more fun. We're joining forces with Fit Radio to build fitness courts in 100 cities and schools across America in 2018. Fit Radio provides $10,000 for every $20,000 we raise. Each time we do this, we open a new fitness court. Our first new fitness court has been at Marina Green for more than 3 years now. Tens of thousands of people have used it, and hundreds of people from around the country and around the world have contacted us to get one.
I think it's amazing.
I love the fact that this is here and it's been here. It's awesome. You can do a ton of different kind of workouts here.
It's a perfect spot right in the marina.
They can come out, enjoy the views, get some fresh air.
National Fitness Campaign is a social enterprise and I take no salary. So all the money we raise goes directly to building fitness courts across America. We envision fitness courts joining basketball courts and tennis courts as essential elements of healthy infrastructure in cities and schools. We're excited to work with you to build fit communities. Join with us and let's make world-class fitness free for everyone.
And I know we have outdoor exercise equipment at Virginia Acres Park along the walking track, and I know when this opportunity was presented to us, it is something that we have looked at very carefully for a while, and believe it's something to take to council for consideration with the grant, and then whether the money is raised within the community or as part of our budgeting process, it would add some extra amenities and elements into Generations Park as we move forward on its future use.
Special thanks, Mr. Mayor, to Jessica for seeking this opportunity out for our city. And
Go ahead.
I know that having walked Waddell Weeks, Virginia Acres Park, that area is used pretty heavily. So that has been a compliment to the walking trail around Waddell Weeks. So
Very good. All right.
I absolutely love it.
Great. Any comments from the audience?
Love it.
Okay. Any other comments? Gil, I know
How much
you.
is the match that we have to raise?
How much of the match do we have to raise? Jessica, if you want to come up.
The fitness court itself is $120,000. The grant is for $30,000, so that's $90,000. We are looking to also purchase a shade structure, custom shade structure through the National Fitness Campaign. That's an additional $30,000, or $20,000, excuse me, plus $30,000 for install. So we'd like to have $140 to match the $30 that's being given for a total of $170.
Did you say a shade structure?
Shade structure, being that Generations Park is open, they do have a custom shade structure for an additional amount that we'd like to consider as well when we, but a lot of that, again, will depend on funding.
Do we have a program to reach out to some of the corporations in the city?
Yes, that is something we will, pending this approval, we would, yes.
Great, thanks.
Do we have to be able to do all those exercises?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, absolutely.
The beauty of the fitness court is there's a mobile app, and it will walk you through a 7-minute workout, or you can or you can hire a personal
trainer. It's going to take some
trainer.
workout to get to some of those.
Just a side note, don't we have another grant going in to pave the walkway around the track around it?
Correct. That should be starting, I'm not directly working on that, but it should be starting this next month, from my understanding. Sir?
Good. Appreciate it, Jessica. Thank you.
I'd just like to make one comment. We're doing all this stuff out there. I think at some point we need to start thinking about putting call boxes in around that track, like we do at Virginia Acres. And if we're talking about raising money for that park or project, that might be one we want to look at also.
Good point.
Duly noted.
It's a very good point. Mhm.
All right, any other comments from council? Okay, all those in favor? And that's unanimous, thank you. Item number 5 was continued. So move to item number 6 under new business. This is the first reading of an ordinance to approve text amendments to the zoning ordinance for the limited business and downtown business district zones. By title, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance regarding limited business and downtown businesses text amendments. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Jarrett. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councilman Waltz. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have, for a good part of the year, have been discussing several items. One is the potential expansion of the downtown business zone district, and the other is the issue of the zoning on Waterloo Street between Hayne Avenue and Richland Avenue West. And those matters have been referred to council, by council to the Planning Commission. There have been several public meetings as well for input, and we've received a lot of comment both at this body and at the public meetings and at the Planning Commission. And we have what the Planning Commission determined at their September 11th, 2018 meeting is the following. A text amendment to the limited business zone in our zoning ordinance, which would prohibit liquor store uses rather than allowing them by special exception, prohibit convenience store uses rather than permitting those uses by right, prohibiting convenience store uses rather than permitting those uses by right, and adding definitions for convenience stores and grocery stores. And under the downtown business zoning, adding a buffer requirement for bars, nightclubs, and liquor stores, defining a central business district in the area currently zoned downtown business, and allowing either a percentage parking reduction in the downtown business areas outside that central business district, and/or allowing the planning director the authority to take available on-street parking in the vicinity of the use to be credited towards parking requirements. And the Planning Commission unanimously recommended that the proposed changes to the zoning ordinance be approved. And we have that before council consideration tonight is an amendment to the zoning ordinance regarding these text amendments for these two uses or zone districts.
All right, very good.
Mr. Mayor, this is not about Waterloo Street. This is just text amendments, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is correct. These are only text amendments. The reference to Waterloo Street and downtown business were in reference to how we ultimately determined these amendments.
Okay.
But yes, that is a good point. These are just the text amendments and not related to specific parcels being rezoned.
Right.
All right, thank you, sir. Comments from the audience? Yes, sir. Good evening, Charlotte.
Charlotte Wiedemann, 626 Hayne, and this time of year, the proprietress of the Hayne Avenue Dead and Breakfast. I just had a point of clarification on this, and maybe Ryan could ask this, but when it says that liquor stores would have a setback of 200 feet, is that 200 feet from the property line?
Ryan, would you?
Mr. Mayor, so yeah, the way it is written, it says property, so it would be, we would define that as the property line if, as opposed to the actual residence itself.
That was my only question.
No, I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Councilwoman.
Had a bunch of former council members here tonight.
What's the matter with us? I'm just, conditional special exception. Can we talk about what that means?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
If it's conditional, what conditions? The one thing I want to say is, I think the more specific this can be, the more at ease neighbors might be, and also the more, less at risk investors would be to acquire something that they really couldn't use the way they wanted to use it. So I think the more specific this can be, the better we are. But I'm noticing, I'm interested in the limited business zone, because that's a real interesting topic on Waterloo. And it says eating establishments and conditional uses. And I don't know really what that means.
Okay. Ryan, you might as well sit up front for a little while. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, yeah, just for clarification on the kind of the workings of the zoning ordinance. Conditional uses are specifically spelled out in the ordinance under separate sections for specific uses, and those are requirements that can be signed off administratively by staff. So for in this instance, within the LB district specifically to eating establishments, it restricts hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. It requires that there be no outside amplified music. It requires that signs not be internally illuminated. So if you'd have to light your sign, it wouldn't glow outward. You'd have to shine a light upon it. And I believe those are the factors. Otherwise, conditionally, overall within the LP and LB districts, both, there are some design standards limiting the square footage of a building to 20% or 5,000 square feet. Sorry, 20% of lot size or 5,000 square feet, whichever is less. Also, it requires residential character in construction. And it requires that parking, if not on street, be located to the side or rear property line. So those are the conditions. Those design conditions are for everything in the LP or LB districts. The outside amplified music and the sign standards or outside amplification of any kind, those are related specifically to the eating establishments. The hours of operation are universal to all LP and LB businesses as well.
And the special exception?
Special exception is a process, the special exception process is a separate application that is heard by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Those are criteria set by the state and state statute, but those criteria essentially that you have to prove in order to be able to allow that use on the property that is compatible with the neighborhood, that is compatible with the comprehensive plan, that is compatible with the zone district in which it's in, and a number of other factors, health, safety, and welfare for the community. So there are 7 different conditions along those lines that you have to prove that are satisfied to the Board of Zoning Appeals to be able to grant a special exception for a use on a specific property.
Now, Ryan, the items that are specifically listed that are not to be included in the zoning, could they apply for a special exemption, or would they be precluded because there's named specifically?
So we have 3 different levels. There's permitted by right, there's permitted conditionally, which I spelled out. There are special exceptions. Anything else is not allowed and does not really have an avenue other than a rezoning, a full rezoning. There's not such thing really as a use variance. It would have to be actually rezoning to a zone district that would permit that use. So if it's not a special exception permitted by right or conditional, it is not eligible in that zone district that property is owned.
I'm a little confused about maintaining residential character. That would be applied to both categories, or?
Correct. LP and LB both currently have that requirement in the zoning ordinance, and it gives some specific examples such as roof configuration, window and door configuration, things like that. But other than that, it doesn't give a lot of guidance, but it says that commercial construction within the LP and LB district would be subject to being a residential design, essentially.
And what we're doing essentially is changing the ordinance. We're not doing any rezoning.
There's no rezoning being proposed at this meeting. The Planning Commission did initiate rezoning of Waterloo Street, but that is not before you this evening. They still have the first hearing and recommendation at their next Planning Commission meeting. So the Waterloo Street corridor has been noticed as of last Friday for the next Planning Commission meeting, but right now, Planning Commission has just referred zoning ordinance amendments. They didn't necessarily want both of those things running concurrently. They wanted to kind of have some definitive example of what the LB district is prior to initiating a rezoning on
We
it.
had some major issues with notification of residents in the prior meetings. Have you really gone to the extra way to make sure everybody is aware that they can appear before the Planning Commission, if that's the case with the Planning Commission?
Yeah, so we will be, yeah, we have not yet, we are sending out an email to any email that we have. I've always hesitated to notice as far as legal public notice, as far as who gets mailers and sign postings and things like that beyond what is specifically required in the zoning ordinance. We generally stick with that for specific noticing, but we will use other avenues to make sure that those interested parties know, and that we've gotten a various variety of ways from folks who have been interested in participatory in this process to let them know that that is going to the next planning commission.
That ought to be good enough. I mean, you're getting all the neighbors,
Right.
the neighbors and so forth. But I want to go back to when the public can comment. Your opinion, is the next meeting that the Planning Commission has on this rezoning, is that one that the public can comment?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a required public hearing per the zoning ordinance to
What date?
rezone property.
You know what day it's scheduled?
It is, I'm thrown off by this month being kind of an extra week.
November
long.
13th,
It's
I
the
believe.
13th, November 13th.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Jane.
Just could I ask,
Yep.
does seating include outdoor seating? Is that allowed in the limited business zone?
Outdoor seating is not restricted in, yes, the ordinance does not restrict outdoor seating, it does restrict outdoor amplification.
And what about parking? Is there a certain number of parking spaces?
So there is a parking requirement for the use, so, yes, there would be, I believe it's, one space per every 3 or 4 seats of capacity at a restaurant. So we would look into that if somebody were to rezone, or were to move, for instance, a restaurant into a property zoned LB.
And this is for other areas, because Waterloo Street, the front yards are already paved. Is there anything about paving front yards? Because once front yards are paved, you can pretty much, I mean, it's really difficult to make it anything other than, is what I've noticed in different neighborhoods all over the state.
So
And I think that makes it hard in Waterloo to use some of those structures for
So,
residential.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, it's not necessarily that, several of the ones that, yeah, the front yards are paved. A lot of that paving is actually on SC DOT right-of-way, which is different. Now, if you're talking about a site specifically, our ordinance does have provisions in it that if somebody renovates a property in excess of 50% of the value of that property, then essentially any grandfathering of access, parking, those sorts of things, they would have to meet current code. So that if there was a significant rehabilitation taking place, we would require it to be brought up to all current site standards. So in that case, some of those may have to move if there is parking in the front on the property, would have to look into some additional parking on the side and rear instead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Jane. Any other comments from the audience? Were you waving to speak, or? Yes, yes. Oh, okay, very good. Christian, yeah. Good evening. I'll wave back at you.
Since I'm here, I'd just like to speak on this as well. I know this isn't about Waterloo in general, but I am the owner of 113 Waterloo. I appreciate y'all taking the time to make sure we get a good new mold, to make sure I get some good neighbors.
Sure. And this is Christian Carlisle.
Christian Carlisle, yeah. I manage Plum Pudding. I've been there for 17 years. A lot of people come through the doors, and a lot of people come and move to Aiken because of the impression left on this town by us on that corner. And this is a second investment in this community for me, beyond my home and family. So I hope we can turn Waterloo into something that, you know, is as big of a draw as the downtown is to Aiken. Something the city can be proud of, because I doubt anybody's walked down Waterloo in the past 2 years and said, I'd like a piece of this pie. Appreciate everybody making sure that the zoning and everything is done correctly and in a way that'll ensure that my investment is protected with some good neighbors.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Christian.
that. And just again, this hearing is simply on the zoning. This isn't a rezoning of Waterloo, but it's on LB and the changes too. So any other comments from the audience? Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Katie Lipscomb, 307 Cherbourg. Hoarse from singing this weekend. But I just wanted
Congratulations on the great Aiken City Limits, by the way.
It was fun.
What a great event.
I just wanted to commend our planning department, because I've been going through this whole process from when we had our meetings in the neighborhoods to the planning commission meetings and everything. They're fabulous. I think they've gone above and beyond to try and do peaceful coexistence here, and I'm excited about the planning department. I just had to say that.
Okay. Okay, thank you for being here tonight. Okay, any other comments? All right, comments from council? Okay, all those in favor on first reading of an ordinance to approve the text amendments to the zoning ordinance to the limited business and downtown business district zones this time. Okay, and that's unanimous. Thank you. And again, I'll just reiterate, the public hearing on the Waterloo is November, what did you say?
November 13th.
November 13th. Okay.
And I believe it's 6 o'clock is the meeting time.
Okay, very good.
6 p.m.
Moving to item number 7, this is a first reading of an ordinance to annex 4 properties to the city of Aiken. By title, an ordinance to annex 4 properties to the city of Aiken. Of course, they were listed in your packet. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Jarrett. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Gregory? Ms. Gregory? Yeah, okay, thank you, Ms. Gregory, sorry. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have, I guess, compiled this a little differently, but we have received 4 zoning, annexation applications for 1752 Notch Road to be zoned RS10, 17 Hudson Road to be annexed and zoned RS15, 122 Branchwater Lane to be annexed and zoned RS15, and 604 Boardman Road annexed and zoned RS10. The Planning Commission considered all of these applications at their October 9th meeting and unanimously recommended they be annexed and zoned as noted above. And it is before you tonight for first reading.
All right. Yes, sir.
If council's okay, these are all water bill or new water customers, and so I've combined all 4 of them into one ordinance. If that suits council, I'm going to continue to do that in the future.
Yes.
And if there happens to be some controversy about one of these properties, we can always just say delete item 1, item 2, item 3, or item 4, and move on accordingly.
Good idea.
Thank you, Gary.
That's fine. All right, so if anyone has any comment about any one of these, certainly you have an opportunity to speak on that issue. Okay. Any comments from council? All right. All those in favor of first reading of the annexation of these 4 properties? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thanks. Moving down to item number 8, this is a first reading of an ordinance authorizing certain economic development incentives for the project to be developed by B&W Enterprises. By title, an ordinance authorizing certain economic development incentives pursuant to ordinance number 08132018 of the City of Aiken Code of Ordinances for a project to be developed by B&W Enterprises LLC, approving the economic development inducement and incentive agreement and other matters related thereto. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I second.
Mr. Girardeau with motion and Councilwoman Diggs for the second. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier this year, we did pass an economic development incentive ordinance, and we have our first applicant that is before you tonight, and it is Betsy Simons of B&W Enterprises. She has purchased vacant property at 224 Park Avenue Southwest, which is just several doors down from our current location. She purchased the property for $680,000 and has invested a significant portion in addition to that into the property, and expects to double her workforce from 18 employees at her just recently closed location at the corner of Lawrence Street Northwest and Barnwell Street to this new location that will open very soon. And our incentives ordinance, just as to refresh council, is it allows retrospective reimbursements, meaning a year in of up to 50% of the following fees: utility connection fees, building permit fees, and business license fees. And our attorney Gary Pope has drafted, our attorney for this ordinance, Gary Pope, has drafted the ordinance for your consideration tonight, and we have before council tonight consideration of this ordinance authorizing certain economic development incentives for the project to be developed by B&W Enterprises.
All right, thank you, Mr. Beedenbach. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council?
Yeah, I just have a question. The ordinance, sort of mundane, but it authorizes retrospective reimbursement of business licenses, and the ordinance says for up to 5 years. We never discussed how we got from 0 to 5, and of course the ordinance is written and it's all the way up to 5. I don't know whether anybody else from council has any thoughts on that, but we didn't say for 5, we said up to 5.
I mean, if the council would like to specify, I guess the ordinance is up to 5. If you want to specify a time limit, whether it's 1 year through 5 years or up to 5 years, we certainly can.
I've made the comment, and
Yes.
this is between first reading and second reading, so if anybody wants to, I can see there's a big difference between, let's say, a multi-million-dollar investment versus a smaller investment or anything in between. And maybe it doesn't make any difference. Maybe everybody's happy with 5, so. But I wanted to raise that issue.
All right. We don't have a number on what we're talking about money-wise here.
No, we won't until after.
We would not. It would be year to year, as you well know.
But that's a good point for you to make.
With that comment, I'm just wondering, is the thought that it would be up to 5 years in the event that she actually stayed in business for 5 years?
That is, I'm sure, part of it, but I will defer to Mr. Pope.
Mayor, members of council, it is entirely a policy question up to council. I think it's absolutely appropriate if you'd like to consider a time period that's less than 5 years for second reading to speak with your peers and come to a policy decision as to how long you'd like for it to be. But yes, the default would be 5 years, assuming it stays in business for 5 years.
Okay.
Would this be something that we would consider, it obviously being dependent on the first year of business? Would there be like maybe a potential benchmark that would, if it's a certain amount first year of business, that we would consider it the second year of business, or?
That is something, I guess, that falls in the realm, too, of a policy decision that council could choose to set
I suspect
benchmark.
she's going to continue operating under the old business name that she's not creating a new business for this building, is she?
That is one thing
She's
I'm
already
not
paid.
aware, but I know Tim O'Brien has been working with Ms. Simons on this, so.
Good evening, Tim.
There is a slight, good evening, Mr. Mayor. There's a slight adjustment in the name to Betsy's Around the Corner instead of Betsy's On the Corner. But the object, and Gary can speak to this, is for new projects, not new businesses. That's something we've discussed. It seeks new investment by existing businesses as well as new investment from new businesses. And the other caveat beyond the policy decision is part of the reason for the up to is that each year there are benchmarks where we would meet with each person who receives the incentive to ensure that they continue to employ the people that they have agreed to employ and continue to provide the benefit to the city as called for in the finding by council. So that's why we would review it each year. It could be any number of years.
And I recall us talking about taking each business as a case by case because it depends on, you know, the entire
That makes
entity as a
sense.
whole.
But I didn't see some of those details in here. Are they in here in terms of number of employees that this business will create?
Yes, it's up to 36 at the new location.
Yeah, they will basically double, expects to double her
Double the number.
workforce.
No, but you're talking about the criteria in the ordinance, aren't you?
Yes. Well, no, I'm talking about, well, this is for a specific business. And so,
It's included in the application. I don't know if it's specifically,
If the maintenance of that level of employment is a condition of receiving the business license, that again is a policy decision of council. We will make certain that that is the case, if that is the will of council. Which I understand your suggestion, and it may be appropriate to offer an amendment to make certain that that level of employment is maintained in each of the 5 years as a condition of receiving the rebate for the business license, but that is not exactly how it is currently drafted. But again, these are very good questions.
I want to dump it back to you because you're the expert. You're advising us on how to structure this incentive, and it would seem to me as though you should give us a list of options that we should be able to consider. For example, the number of employees. That could be at the end of 5 years. It could be any time in between. If we're going to, it could be progressive. I mean, start with 18, go to 22, what have you. I mean, those are questions that we should be told that we need to make.
Certainly, and as we've discussed in many work sessions regarding the ordinance, many of these are trial and error, and we try to find out what would work best in each community. Each community is a little bit different in terms of what it's trying to incentivize. Broadly speaking, you want to have ongoing monitoring, and you want to have a benefit that's being conveyed as long as a incentive is being offered. So it would be very consistent to have a employment threshold and an investment threshold to be maintained during the course of time during the rebate of the business license.
If we could redo the cover memo so it clearly shows the benchmarks that need to be achieved to receive the incentive. I mean, it's a great program. I'm
Year to
thoroughly
year.
behind it, but I'd just like to make sure that that we all understand what we're approving.
I agree. Stuart, could you?
I would like to have a projection of our costs. I mean, we can estimate what they are. We
I
know
was
what our
gonna say the
business
same
license
thing.
is. We can project that at 5 years. We know what the building permit fee is.
Sure.
We know what connection fees. Let's get a projection of what it's costing us. I don't like to vote on something I don't know what my cost is.
I absolutely agree.
And to add to what Councilman Duar just said, because we as council spoke so much about taking it to a case-by-case basis, then because it is a case-by-case basis, we need all the detail for each specific case. And that's, I'm just reiterating what everybody's saying, and that's what we're lacking right now.
And I certainly would vote to approve first reading with the stipulation that we get this information for second reading.
Well, let me,
And how the rest of the council feels.
if I might add too, I don't have a question, but I've watched the work that's being done on that building, and she has made quite an investment in that building on Park Avenue, so I'm looking forward to it.
I don't have any problem with that. I agree wholeheartedly with Councilman Waltz. I would like a projection of exactly what we're about. So if we could have some sort of projection range on that also.
We could certainly do that.
And this is the first time we're using this ordinance, so
Right.
it's
Right.
very important that we understand our options.
It's a great opportunity.
But yes, but for the business itself, I mean, right now it's up to 5 years. In 3 years, we say, okay, that's it, you don't get it anymore. Why? So that has to be spelled out.
Thank you, gentlemen.
on Betsy's behalf, she was going to be here tonight, but I saw her carrying a very heavy toolbox back and forth across the street, and they are opening imminently, so I think she's tired.
Where she wants to be.
Thank you, Tim. Mr. Berry had some comments too before we open.
I saw her today too, and they're moving. They're trying to open up by the 1st
Right.
of November.
Mr. Mayor, my name's Rick Berry. I live in Trenton, 57 Long Leaf Drive. It's new to me, so I have to think about it.
Yes, sir.
I'm a prospective developer, and I have done this over several years. I ought to be wealthy, but I got over it. In respect of Mr. DeWar's comment, the more flexible you can leave it, the better you have your opportunities as a council to make decisions. And so I would recommend against trying to be too specific, and the council needs to trust itself that you won't use bad judgment, I suppose, for any particular reason. So as a developer, I encourage you, with Mr. Pope's probably suggestion, that you leave that as flexible as possible.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berry.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being with us tonight.
And that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, it's all done to try to help businesses get bigger and better as we go along. And
Well, it is, but I would point out that at the beginning, life is full of optimism, and just picking the number of employees, for example, you say 36, and all of a sudden, you don't need 36, but that's the number you used. I don't think anybody on this council would be comfortable saying, well, you're not going to get it because you didn't do the 36, so we need to put the focus on the number on the part of the business as well as on the council, so.
and that's what's being flexible.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a
yeah,
good
it's a
point.
flexibility, yep.
Very good.
Be objective to the area the investment's taken place in as well, so.
All right. All those in favor on first reading with direction to staff to come back with information, with a projection and some clarification. So, all those in favor on first? And that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, moving down to petitions and requests. Number one is a request for banners in the downtown to promote the Aiken's Bacon and Brews event sponsored by the Aiken Kiwanis Club. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Girardeau, Mr. Waltz, comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have a request to place banners in downtown Aiken promoting Aiken's Bacon and Brews. The event itself will be Saturday, March 16th, 2019. The banners would be hung from March 2nd through the event.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any comments from the audience? Okay. Comments from council? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Number two, this is a request for selection of name for Eustis Park facility. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Councilman DeWar, is there a second?
Second.
I guess should the motion say what the name of it is?
Right.
I hope we'll say it into the record as upon the city managers. I don't know why it doesn't say it in there, but.
Yes, the suggested name is Aiken Senior Youth Center, and speaking, I think, to...
1 second.
Yes.
I know there was a second, but I apologize, I didn't.
Yeah, I seconded.
All right, Mr. Girardeau, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Greenbaugh.
No problem, Mr. Mayor. The proposed name would be Aiken Senior Youth Center, but I did, I think one idea or proposal that was mentioned was to also note Aiken Senior Youth Center at Eustis Park. So I think that is the proposal before council today. And part of the rationale for the name now is we are getting to the point with the construction of the facility. We are far enough along to where we need to have a sign ordered, and so it will be installed by the time of the ribbon cutting or the opening.
You think we need to say at Eustis Park?
I don't think so.
Okay, and that was something that that had been mentioned before, but Aiken Senior Youth Center would be certainly be fine as well.
Okay, that's the
Who
motion.
suggested it?
That was something I know in conversation I know with the mayor, he had mentioned potentially having Eustis Park.
I mean, I think a sign should probably say Eustis Park facility, kind of like Odell Weeks when we were changing the sign on that, or projecting it, where they were doing Virginia Acres Park. It should
Well,
say
there's a
Odell Weeks on
building, the Aiken Senior Youth Center is the building. Eustis Park is the
Right.
recreational
there.
area.
Is this a sign on the building or on the ground?
This would be the sign out in front of the building, I guess akin to a monument sign.
I haven't heard of any youth activities there yet. All I've heard about senior activities.
That is correct, but the ballot question said Senior Youth Center, and there will be ultimately youth
There's youth
programming.
Yes.
I thought that was the name. So, just go with it.
So the name will be
Name on
Aiken
the
Senior
ballot
Youth
was
Center.
Aiken Senior Youth Center.
Right.
And Jessica, Mr. Mayor, I don't want to get out of line here. Can I refer to Jessica? Do you have it?
Sure.
But anyway.
Jessica, please, ma'am. With the Aiken Center, Aiken Senior Youth Center, that center is designed for senior activity and youth activity.
Correct.
And I think you have some plans already in mind for both. Is that not correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, we have staff that will be able to program for both.
Okay.
And some activities already in mind with the community there and some outdoor and indoor programming.
Okay.
Well, very good.
And I did fail to mention, but it is noted in the memo that as part of the grant we received from the Lieutenant Governor's office, it must be identified, the senior needs to be in there as part of the identification.
Yeah, Aiken Senior Youth Center.
Correct. And Eustis Park has its own signage
Right.
at the park site.
So our name is Aiken Senior Youth Center.
At Aiken Senior Youth Center.
Let's go with that.
I think that's what we
I
said.
think that's a good idea.
It'll never fly.
I thought it was that.
Any comments from the audience? All right, any further comments from council? Shall I restate the name just so we're from all voting on here? All those in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. Moving down to information, issues and updates. Anything for the good?
I would just like briefly, or very quickly, to just again, since our last meeting, we had the remnants of Michael, the storm Michael, come through, and I would like to compliment staff's response to that event, which was a little less than 2 weeks ago.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Are we
Agreed.
caught up? I got a letter today.
Not yet.
No, we are not.
Do we have a prospectus as to when that's going to be done, Tim?
Full week behind.
Full week behind.
4 weeks?
A full week,
Oh.
7, yes.
Okay.
We completed Monday today, but it didn't get service last night. And I expect Tuesday to take till maybe Friday. We're waiting on that.
When do you foresee we'll be on track? I'm getting a lot of
Yes.
communication regarding this.
4 weeks.
And this event, as of yet, we have not been notified that it's a FEMA, or it was declared a disaster, at least in Aiken County and the city of Aiken by the president and subsequently state emergency management. So that could happen, but as of this moment, it is not.
Real quick, what's the update on reimbursement for the ice storm?
Yes, earlier this month, the legislature met to consider the governor's vetoes, and they did override the veto of the ice storm reimbursement, meaning we will get reimbursed for monies owed from the 2014 winter ice storm. We received correspondence from the State Emergency Management Division that we should get that by the end of November.
Very good. All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Gerardo, seconded by Councilwoman Diggs. All those in favor, please join Mr. Dewar in standing up.